Thank you all so much. Again, I'm Matt Hampton, the director here of the Allen Entrepreneurial Institute, and we are so excited about how things are going. Are y'all having a good time today? Yes. Are you learning? Yes. That's what this is all about. All right. So the first thing I want to do, we have some leaders coming before you today, because what's happening here today, young people, is something that doesn't happen unless you have leaders who are committed to your growth and who are committed to your development, okay? And so this evening, we want to introduce the leaders of this initiative and this partnership between the Allen Entrepreneurial Institute and Clayton County Public Schools. But the first person I want to recognize, and I want to tell you that great job, is each of you, because y'all got up at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning to get here, so y'all give yourself a round of applause. While she's in here, but I do definitely want to recognize Dr. Alicia Dunn, who was my point of contact and who worked very diligently with us. But I also want to recognize all of the counselors and teachers who are chaperones. Like, would you all please stand? We know that you all have a lot on your plate already, and we added a little bit more to it, but you all were more than responsive. You all were very helpful when we did our orientations. You were very helpful through the process, and so we are definitely thankful for your assistance. Miss Onithia Flowers, would you please come back? Did y'all enjoy the food? Yeah. I was trying to get Mrs. Flowers back, and Chef Allen, please come forward. So y'all thank Miss Onithia. Dr. Dunn, stay on that. Okay. Dr. Dunn, would you please raise your hand? You don't just come to the Allen Entrepreneurial Institute. We have some very strict standards, and y'all met them all, and we're proud of you. But that's because Dr. Dunn was very diligent in her leadership. So Dr. Dunn, we want to recognize you and thank you for your leadership in that regard, ma'am. All right? All right, so moving forward, this evening your leaders are going to come before you. The first young man that I'm going to bring before you is Dr. Ralph Simpson. He is your Deputy Superintendent of School Improvement and Leadership, and he will come before you and then bring forward your Superintendent, Dr. Beasley. So if you would, Dr. Simpson.
Good afternoon. I'll be very brief, but I need you to listen. Put your phones down real quick. There are going to be some individuals coming before you that you really need to give your undivided attention. And it's not me, but I want to lay the foundation. So listen closely. Heard one of our civil rights activists start out with this quote. He said that it is the responsibility of the conscious to make the unconscious conscious of its unconscious behavior. I'm going to say that again. He said it's the responsibility of the conscious to make the unconscious conscious of its unconscious behavior. Let me break that down for you. What he meant was, it's the responsibility for those that know to help those that don't know realize they don't even know. I said that to you because oftentimes when people come before us, we already assume what it is that they're going to share with us and their message and their information. You don't know what's going to be shared with you, but I can almost guarantee you that when you walk out of here this afternoon with this experience and this opportunity that you've been blessed with, I can guarantee you it's some fruit that you will be able to feed off of for the rest of your life. The last thing, and the most important thing, because as I look at you and how great you look, it is important for me to always leave you with this message because you are our future. Your appearance is your table of contents. In the book, it's a table of contents. As soon as you open it up, it tells you everything about that book. Your appearance tells us and will tell people all about you before you open your mouth. The way you dress is the way you'll be addressed. People will speak to you in a way just because of your appearance. So if you want to change the game, Whether you're a graduating senior, when you get to that college class, pull up in the front seat of that particular class. Because you're going to send a message to that professor that you are interested, you're engaged, and you might not be. If you are a junior, you're a returning senior, go to your class and you sit in the front seat because you're going to send a message to that teacher that you're engaged and you're involved, and you might not be. But that's what we think about the people who sit up front. You've not taken a quiz or a test. We just believe and assume that you're interested in doing it. This is just helpful tips for you. Along with that, raise your hand and ask a question that you might already know the answer to. Again, you send a message to that teacher that you're engaged and you're paying attention, you're attentive. After class is ended, go up to her and say, could you explain a little bit more specifically or in detail about what that was that you were explaining in class? I'm going to tell you why I'm saying all this. At the end of the semester, when your grade just happens to be a 69, y'all follow me? At the end of the semester, when your grade averages out to be a 79 or 89, and that teacher who has the control and the ability to be able to make that decision of why should I give this student that 1 point, they're going to think back to, you know what they said, front seat. They always came to class on time. They asked questions when they didn't understand, they were attentive. Folks, we've been given that one. All of us have been given that one. I just wish somebody had told me that when I was in high school and college. I was stuck with the 69. I was stuck with the 79 because I didn't understand that concept, the appearance, the way I presented myself. You have a superintendent in our school district. We have a superintendent in our school district who believes to the utmost that it is extremely important that you be provided with exposure and opportunities that will enhance your chances of being the most successful person in the world. He believes and feels that way about every single child in Clayton County Public Schools. Whatever it takes, he's willing to go to those places to make sure you are provided the very best so that you can compete with those not locally but globally. He met a person, Dr. Allen, who you're from, who has the know-who and the know-how to increase and accelerate those opportunities. It's all about relationships. So please, give your undivided attention to our superintendent, Dr. Morsees J. Beasley, as he comes to address you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simpson. Good afternoon, everyone. It's always good to see you all. I am very pleased for this opportunity to Dr. Dunn, who's awesome. Let's give her and our counselors and sponsors and chaperones a great round of applause. Dr. Simpson, our Deputy Superintendent over School Leadership and Improvement. To our Communications Department. Communications, where are you, Jada? Where are you? Let's give them a hand as well that are covering this event. And to Dr. Allen, clearly, who is a partner with us in Clayton County Public Schools. You'll hear from him shortly. I'd just like to share while I have a moment with you. It is very important to me. My grandmother, who's in heaven today, told me years ago, she said, to always be able to walk with kings as well as the common man. I didn't realize when I was a child the implications of what she was telling me. I didn't realize that I would have the opportunity to eat with my family, my Pookie and them, but also to eat with governors and presidents and kings of state. I did not realize when I was a child that I would have that type of life. Dr. Allen, again, you'll hear from him shortly. This is the location that I was invited to my first head of state dinner. A president, a head of state from a country beyond the borders of the United States. I didn't realize that as a child who loved teaching and learning, that I would one day be a math teacher and one day be a principal of 4 high schools and eventually You're over teaching and learning, guiding and forming the learning opportunities of hundreds of thousands of young people, and eventually the superintendent of the 5th largest district in the state of Georgia, influencing policy and practice for 55,000 plus young people, of which you are clearly a part of that group. I didn't realize that I would work with the Chamber and the Rotary Club to ensure that you have opportunities. Someone will ask, why do I do these things? I'll tell you this. Your superintendent, when I was a high school student, the school was my home away from home. I felt safe at school. And so I was an SGA president, I was president of the Math Honor Society, the National Honor Society. I participated. I did everything that I could to help lift up my school. I had a great rapport with my principal. Did not realize that one day I would be a principal. My principal would share that there were concerns among the student body, and then we would work with him as SGA president to implement tutorial programs and do various activities for our school. I did not realize then that one day that I would be one of those principals working with young people to give them the best educational experience. And when I became a principal, I had no clue that I would one day be a superintendent. I just wanted my students to have the best educational experience that I had to offer, that we had to offer within our school. And so as we forward years later until today, young people, I would say to you that you first have to remember that you will be in landing places that today you hadn't even imagined are ordained and purposed for you to land. You cannot look at yourself today in your current circumstance as if that is going to be the end of your circle. That's going to be your plateau. That is not your plateau. You are not where you are. You will be who you want to be. You will be who you are called to be. And so I say that to say this. This opportunity to learn about how to eat in this type of environment is very important. And I hope you take the skills and this experience and transfer it to home and set up the table. My grandmother would ask me to set up the table during Thanksgiving and dinner time, etc. Sitting around eating, conversing in a tone that shows respect for oneself and the person persons you're conversing with. So I hope you would take this experience and transfer it, realizing that you will one day need this experience because it will land you somewhere and it will be of value to you. I want you all to think about the way you present yourself, as Dr. Simpson shared, the way you dress. Every day is not a shirt and tie day for me. And even today, I have on a turtleneck, but I didn't feel like wearing a shirt and tie. And that's okay. But you will not find me in certain settings dressed inappropriately. The way I speak, I'm very multilingual. I know the what's up and the that language, but I'm very, very mindful when I stand before people of my subject and verb agreements. I'm very mindful of my enunciation and my pronunciation. Because what I don't ever want people to do is look at me and assume that they know my experience. And that they think because I'm a certain color or I look a certain way, that they've already assessed who I am, my level of competence, etc. And so I want you, as young people, I want you to invest in yourselves. These opportunities, we're investing in you, but I want you to invest in yourself. And I want you to think highly of yourself. Not more highly than you should, but think highly of yourself. Enough so that when you're afforded these opportunities, that you tell yourself, we deserve this opportunity. And when we deserve this opportunity, then we're going to learn what we need to learn from it, and we're going to pay it forward. We're going to use it for our lives, to lift our lives, ourselves individually, our families, and our community. And we're going to make sure that we lift other people when we have that opportunity. So I'm very grateful that you're here. I love just listening to you all interact with the trainer, the teacher. I love listening to you all just have conversations around the table, because I think sometimes in our society, you don't do enough of that. Just to be young, to be carefree, you don't have to worry about bills and drama and politics, but just to enjoy the moment, to be in the present, to enjoy the moment. Teachers are over there not having to stand over you, because when you regulate yourself, you don't have the need of other people to do what? Regulate you. I wish we could bring all 55,000 students to have this experience, but that can't happen. So you represent the 55,000 students. I would say to you, go back, share your experience, and when you have the opportunity to give someone this type of experience, I would expect you to pay it forward. Let's welcome and acknowledge our partner who owns all of this, who opened the doors of all of this to the students of Clayton County, Dr. Allen. Let's give him a hand as he comes.
How's everybody doing? I'm not sure you're doing good. How are you doing? Anybody in here doing great? Hey, listen, I get excited. You know what rings my bell at this stage of my life is seeing bright young people. And I've gotten kind of selfish as I've gotten older. And one way I've gotten selfish is I'm very selective about who I spend my time with. And I just decided I'm tired of spending my time with some dumb people. I'm serious. I like to spend my time with bright people, especially bright young people. So I want you to know that, yes, we set certain standards here at the Institute. I've talked to a few of the groups individually and I've said some things, but I want to repeat it to everybody. I'm not interested, so I'm just confessing, in spending my time with people who want to be average. You can be average all by yourself. This institute is not for everybody. And I don't apologize for it. I'm with W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm interested in the talented 10. And I want to thank Dr. Dunn. Dr. Dunn has worked entirely to make this happen. And I can be a tough person to work with. You hear that? Because I'm very demanding. But here's the interesting thing. I just don't demand of other people. I first demand of myself. And I've learned to demand of myself to be the best that God called me to be. You don't know what you are called to do or to be. And let me thank both of these gentlemen. Dr. Simpson, you set this off well. You have said, they did such a good job, I felt like the preacher in a pulpit. Everybody that preached a good sermon, all I need to do is say amen. You did a wonderful job of talking about people judging you. So there's a reason why we asked you to dress up today. How many of you have watched court dramas a person who we know has never owned a suit in his life goes to court, and they make him cut his hair, this is their attorney, and put on a shirt and tie. Have you noticed that? Yes. Well, I won't speak loud enough so you can hear me anyway. Why do you think they do that? Anybody here can answer that question? Yes, ma'am. Loud? Okay. Notice something. Even without the Bible, can all of you hear me? Yes. One of the things you learn from being a leader is you learn to project your voice. I told one young man at the startup factory, and he got it right away. I said, you've got to project with confidence and speak as if you were at a football stadium. So I want every person, because I'm going to ask a lot of questions today, and I want you to answer. So I want to see if you get the concept of why the attorney for the accused person makes them dress a certain way. What is your answer? Okay. Project. That's okay. I know it's a little fearful. One of the greatest fears around is talking in public. But this is one of the things that leaders have to learn how to do. Go ahead.
They make him cut his hair and wear something tied to make him appear better than his face is.
That's right. They want a favorable judgment from the judge or from the jury. Now that's important. When you go out to pursue whatever it is you're trying to pursue in your life, whether it's right or wrong, people are judging you. And as Dr. Beasley said, he will never want them to judge him because they see this black man walking into the room. Don't assume certain things about me. And that's what you should be saying. So you need to do everything to project an image of positiveness and leadership. Let me just tell you this. For so many years, I wore a shirt and tie until I got tired. But I would never go to any of my businesses without my shirt and tie on. Because I'm the leader. I'm setting the tone. And so I did it so long. And I remember one day I was here at this institute, it may have been on a Saturday. And I walked in and I got this stare. And I thought, well, what is wrong? Then I realized I had on a pair of jeans. So people had never seen me wear a pair of jeans. Yes, I wear jeans, I go to the bathroom, I eat, I sleep, I do all the things regular people do. So it's important that you recognize it doesn't matter whether you're the president of the United States, whether you're president of a company, you're still a human being. But it is important that you recognize that you do the appropriate thing at the right time. I'm going to say a few things because I usually have an opportunity to appear before students or anybody who comes through this institute for about an hour and a half. And my methodology has been, I would like to know who I'm talking to. I usually like to have young people stand up and tell me their name, well, in the last few years we've been dealing with historical black colleges, but we've also dealt with some of the brightest young people in the entire world across the continent of Africa. They have sent the best and brightest through under President Obama, called the YALI program, to learn about entrepreneurship, and they spend part of the time here at this institute. So I've dealt with some very bright people. And I usually want to know more about them. But with this many people and the shortness of time, we don't have enough time to do that. So here's some of the things I want to tell you about what we believe at this institute. One, we believe that exposure expands expectation. Let me say that again. The more you are exposed to, the more you see yourself in a certain setting or situation. If you're exposed to people who look like you, who own stuff, you get the idea, you know what? I think I can do that. Because remember, one day, in fact, is there any of you all in here, anybody in here in the 11th grade? Raise your hand. Nobody? Well, how about 12th grade? Good. Well, let me tell you. I was somewhere between 11th and 12th grade. If you all have read in the booklet about me, I was born in this little small town that had 3,540 people. Well, my God, Clayton County School District is graduating that many people. And when I say that's how many people it had, that was babies, that was black people, that was white people, and a few Chinese families in the entire town. But I got this opportunity to come to Atlanta, Georgia. This is way back. So you talk about, you say slavery? Not quite that far back. If I'm slavery, they post-slavery guys. You kind of all over there in case you haven't figured it out. But we understand, young people that think. I know, anybody who's 30 is old. Trust me. I would trade many, many years to be 30 again. Anywhere close to that. I'll take 50. Well, that's okay. Let's go on back with my story. So I came to Atlanta when I was between 11th and 12th grade. And I was coming from this little small cotton-picking town. And I got to Atlanta, and I went down on what is Auburn Avenue. It's not pretty down there right now. But it was beautiful back in the day I came. And I saw black men walking around with pep in their step, and they were wearing shirt ties, kind of like I'm dressed today. It wasn't Sunday, and they weren't all preachers, and they weren't going to church. I'm like, my God, I've not seen this before. Because in my hometown, where everybody during the week mostly wore overalls, because they worked on the farms, they only put on their shirt tie on Sunday. So I was impressed. I was exposed to something that I had not seen before. And then when they took me to Atlanta Life Insurance Company, it exists today. And a black man had established that company, Mr. Herndon, and it's still operating today. And then they took me to an area of Atlanta called Collier Heights. And there were miles and miles of brick homes that black people owned. I'm going, wow. That was the exposure that caused me to realize what was possible. That's why we say exposure expands expectation. Because when I was a kid, all I dreamed about was owning a nice brick house like the plantation owner. Even though I lived in a small town, we still went back to church on the plantation home. I had no idea, not a clue, that I would ever, as Dr. Beasley talked about, being in a position to meet heads of states and to then, I had no idea that I would ever be hosting and entertaining presidents of countries. let alone meet them. I couldn't even imagine that. I was trying to own one house, and I couldn't imagine that when people say to me, "Oh, Mr. Allen, how many houses do you own?" I'm like, let me think. And they're not talking about rent houses. These are personal homes. I was trying to get one. So, there's another saying. What your mind can conceive, in your heart you believe, you can achieve. So I'm going to say that again. I want you to say it with me. What my mind can conceive. Say it after me. Ready? What my mind can conceive.
What my mind can conceive.
In my heart I believe.
In my heart I believe.
I will achieve.
I will achieve.
So let me tell you something else. When I was growing up, and for many of your parents, the whole concept is to go to school, get an education, so you can get a good job. Anybody ever heard that before?
Yes.
And I had a good job. Now I know I don't want to run any of your teachers away, Dr. B, but I got to tell the truth. I became a teacher. And Lord knows I enjoy teaching. But there was one thing I just did not enjoy. And that was the salary. I'm like, well, see, they do pay a little bit more now. Well, see, when I started teaching in the 60s, late 60s, in Detroit, Michigan, I made $5,600 per year. Let me break that down to you. I made $5,600 every year. Now, even back then, there was no money. I looked at my dream. I thought about the house I wanted to build for me and my mother. I said, now, this is not going to work. Either I'm going to have to give up the dream, or I'm going to have to create a plan. Young people, dreams are good. Hope is good. But hope and having the dream is not a strategy. You have something in your mind, you have to create what? A strategy. How are you going to get from being broke to where you want to go? So, I saw an ad in the newspaper one day. And the ad said, by the way, we weren't doing the internet back then, okay? So we read the newspapers, and we didn't have computers, we had the typewriters. I know you guys don't even know. And forget about cell phones, okay? But it doesn't matter. What your mind conceives and your heart you believe, you can still achieve. That will work as long as man is on this earth. So I used the tool that I had, which was the newspaper. And there was an ad in there that said, learn how to be a landlord. I didn't even know what a landlord was. How many of you know what a landlord is? Raise your hand if you know. See, you don't even know. So I'm trying to tell you, you even with where you are, with where I was. I didn't know what a landlord was. Well, let me tell you, before I finish telling you how I got to where I am. I used to go to church a lot on that plantation. And I was so tired of hearing was so tired of hearing that song. But it was drilled in me every Sunday. They would sing the same old song. I know the Lord will make a way. I know the Lord this, I will know that. And so I would go to church because Mama took me to church and what have you, and so on. What I really knew was Mr. R.A. Pickens, who owned a plantation, had this big house, and he had a lot of land. So sometimes you're going to hear about some things. I'm going to tell you why I don't deal with dumb people. Because you can't figure out nothing but how to be done. Smart people cannot know something, but they can figure it out. So, hear what I said. What's a landlord? And I remembered my upbringing. I went to church, and they talked about that God owned everything. The cattle owned 10,000 hills. So there was the Lord. And I remember Mr. R.A. Pickens owned all the land. I said, well, land, you own the land, and then God is in heaven. That sounds like something good to me. So I took the course. That's the truth. I had no idea why I was taking the course. You know, Dr. Simpson gave me such good advice. Sit at the head of the class. So my course in learning how to be a landlord ended up being a round table like this. So let me tell you something else about success. Success is a lonely journey. It's almost like dying in this sense. There are certain things nobody can do for you. You just got to do it for yourself. So you can't bring everybody with you, and it will not always be in a familiar surrounding. You're going to have to get out of your surroundings. You know, I meet many young people who come to this institute. They assume that they are from the ghetto. You know what I say about ghetto? Ghetto is not a place as much as it is a state of mind. You can live in Society Hill and still be in the ghetto if your mind is in the ghetto. Okay? So, the reason that course ended up being at a round table was because not enough people wanted to learn how to be a landlord. So it was given at University of Detroit, and only 7 people signed up for it. And I was the only black person out of the 7 that signed up. So the class was going to get canceled. But the teacher, Goldie Levenstein, said, if you guys still want to take this course, I will teach it, and I'll teach it at my house. And her house turned out to be a senior citizen apartment with her kitchen table. So here's another learning experience, young people. You often have to get out of your familiar surroundings. You can't stay mentally where the people in high school are with you, because everyone does not want to go where you want to go in life. So you have to make new friends. You know, there are a lot of sayings about being broke. If you hang around and make all your friends, you have 10 friends or 9 friends who are broke, and you keep hanging around them, you're going to be the 10. Now, you may already be the 10, but you need to try to seek out some new friends who are going where you're going, or try to be exposed to some things like I was when I came to Atlanta, and let that exposure, that experience change your life. So when I was your age, my trip to Atlanta changed my life. So that's why we say again, exposure expands expectation. You will never be extraordinary doing the ordinary. I'm going to say that again. You will never be extraordinary doing the ordinary. So if you want to be like everybody else, then that's what you're just ordinary. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to think, what is it that I really want to accomplish? And what will be my strategy? You must have a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. Dreaming is not a strategy. And long and short of that story, let me just tell you what partially success looks like. Success is not a destination, people. What is it? It's a journey. So, I started on the journey. I became a landlord. I learned some things. I got so excited about making a little bit of money, I decided to save my money and invest to buy another apartment building. That didn't work out. Things may not always work out for you, but that's okay. You have to keep perseverance, pursuing your dream and your goal. So I'll just cut to the end of the story by saying, and I'll give you a chance to ask a few questions if you've got something burning on your mind that you want to ask. And success kind of looked like this for me. But before I tell you what success looks like for me, I want to explain something to you. Money in and of itself is not success. Let me say that again. Just because you have money does not mean you're successful. If your grandmother had a hidden treasure and she died and left you $200,000, oh, I'm successful. No, you're not successful. You may have money. That is your grandma's success, okay? That's a measure of her success. You follow me? So, money in and of itself is not success. It is one of the manifestations or one of the measurements that we use in this society as success. So let me preach that sermon first. Because there are many people, I have friends that are very successful, but they don't have any money. So you have to determine for you what's your journey. You are already successful if you are seniors and you're graduating, because some people have dropped out of school. So you already are on your journey. How many of you are planning on going to college? Raise your hand. You are in the minority of young people in this country who are going on to higher education. So you're a success. How many of you have already been accepted into college? Raise your hand. There you go. So don't let anybody tell you that you are not successful, because you are. But it's not where you want to be 5 years from now. Am I right? How many people expect to graduate from college? Raise your hand. There you go. You got a goal to set for yourself. I had to go from Arkansas to Detroit to go to college, to graduate from college, to get a teaching job, to go and buy that 8-unit apartment building and to try to buy another one, and ended up detouring into starting daycare centers. Started off with 2 students. babysitting, so to speak. Ended up with more than 12,000. Ended up owning educational facilities, commercial real estate in 7 states in the United States and about 25 cities throughout the United States. All stem from believing, conceiving, and achieving. So don't let anybody, nobody, make you doubt what it is you can become in your life. Because nobody really knows but you and God. Not even your mother, your father, your sisters, your brothers. And he knows first, and then he'll let you know if you really seek to find out, what am I destined to do in my life? So, as a result of owning all of that, I decided, you know what? I don't like living in the cold weather in Michigan. I'm going to buy me a house in Florida. So my wife and I, many years ago, bought our first house in Florida. And I got bored with that house. Very nice house, brand new. Enclosed swimming pool on the golf course in a gated community where you have to go to the guard gate. And I'm bored with it. Because I had been exposed to some houses in Sarasota that were on the ocean. And I said, I want one of those houses. And my wife said, you don't need one of those houses. Well, I may not, but I want one of them. And I worked hard, I sacrificed, and lo and behold, I bought. And to keep her satisfied, I told her, you can keep that one, because she was going to give me a hard time. Good thing. So let me tell you something about money. Not the only thing about it. The greatest thing that money does is give you choice. Now, if my wife and I were struggling to pay the notes on that one house, how could I go out and buy another house? Because I had what? Choice. And what did I say the greatest thing that it does? Gives you what? So I had enough choice. So I went out and I bought that one. And we still have both of those. But in between, because she was arguing so heavily, you know, I saw on television that I said, my God, all the rich people seem to have multiple houses, and some of them have horse cars. I think I'm going to buy me one of those. And I did. And I don't even like horses. So I have a 160-acre farm bigger than all of this, 30 minutes from Disney, 35 minutes from Disney Gate, and 30 minutes from downtown Orlando with 60 horses, and I don't even like horses. But since I had worked hard and sacrificed, nobody gave it to me, Grandma didn't leave it to me, I didn't hit the lottery. Hitting the lottery is not success. I used my mental capacity to create businesses, figure out things. I believe that God wants us to have everything that He has provided on this earth, as long as we keep it in perspective. God first and everything afterwards. But if He made all this stuff, you're entitled to it. So, I'm going to close because there's so much I could tell you. by saying this. When I was young, people got jobs and kept them for 30 years. That doesn't happen anymore, people. Young people today keep a job for maybe 1 or 2 years, they move on to another job, to another job, to another job. Am I right? Technology gives you information about everything you need to know. I was in one class down at the startup factory, and Mr. Hampton was having you guys look up stuff on the internet. You looked up in less than 30 seconds, when I was your age, would take 3 days to a month to find the answers to. But you need to use that technology as a part of your strategy for your success, and not just playing games. Where's the group that I talked to about the Jimmy Choos? All right, good. Let me tell the rest of them what I told you. I am so sick and tired of po folk trying to impress po folk, because you're not impressing rich folk by buying Jimmy Choos. It's the rich folk that's selling them to the po folk so you can impress other po folk. What am I getting at? I'm not impressed as a man of wealth and means. If some of you all saw, want to ask, I'm going to answer before you ask me, what kind of car do I drive? Somebody saw it. Somebody said, what now? A Honda Genesis. And that's the most expensive car I have had. Let me say this. You know what? What I love about that Genesis, besides it's a good-looking car to me, I know what a Mercedes looks like. I also know what a Rolls look like, and I also know what they cost. Now, first of all, I don't really like cars that much. They ain't my thing. You follow me? Houses are my thing. So I went out and but when you got choice, you can buy what your thing is. I'm not against anybody who like cars if you made the money. If you sacrifice, even though they're a bad investment, but when you get enough of it, Dr. Dean, I'm going to have to curse here. I can tell you what a rich man said to me one time. When he flew in on his private plane, I was saying to him, I said, this is a rich, wealthy white man. He flew in to see me on his private plane. I was really impressed. I said, so, tell me how much it costs to fly in on your private plane. He got off, they had the pilot there, and he had his daughter on the plane and all of this. I said, does it cost maybe about 5 times what a first class ticket would cost? He looked at me and said, well, it costs a little bit more than that. But when you get my age, sometimes you decide just to piss away a little money. So when you make money, it gives you the choice. If you want to buy a Rolls Royce and piss away a little money, you're entitled to. But you don't need to be driving around in a Rolls Royce or a Mercedes and can't pay your house note. Now that's stupid. And you don't need a $3,000 Jimmy Choos when you ain't got but $100 put in that purse. Now that's stupid. I'll just call it like it is. Now, if you're going to sell those Jimmy Choos to somebody else that's stupid, that's an entrepreneur. So I want you guys all to be, I'm going to give you a new word today, and I'm done. It ain't about jobs, 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 as your politician will tell you. We're going to get you some jobs, 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 jobs. And people get so excited, they're going to get a job. I had all the blacks state legislators here in this very room were sitting here, and they made the mistake of asking me to speak to them. You know, since it's my own house, y'all can't put me out, so I'm going to say what I want to say. I said, you all need to start telling the people in our community a different message. Stop hollering jobs, 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 and have them get up and shout. I said, I'm going to teach you a new word, and I made all of them repeat after me. And I'm going to make you repeat, and I'm done. You know the new word in our community is, and should be, I've taught one group, they know it, but don't tell them, don't give them the secret. It is, and I want you to pound on these tables, ownership, ownership, ownership. Now say that with me, ready? Ownership. Now somebody ought to get excited about that. Let me tell you about jobs. Needing a job is like needing to breathe. Anybody have to tell you, breathe, breathe? Your bank account will tell you you need a job. Nobody needs to teach you that. Your bank account will. But somebody, and I wanted you to get this message out. There's a new sheriff in town, there's a new word. And that is what? Ownership, ownership, ownership. Thank you very much.